Thanks for that introduction, and thank you for inviting me out to the Local Government Management Association conference this year. I'm quite excited to be here and share my thoughts and ideas and experience around delivering service excellence to improve or to maximize public trust and really tapping into the power of the crowd and how to do that. So very excited. Let's get started right away, and we're going to start by talking about public trust first. For me, it's kind of the penultimate goal for the community engagement work that I do with my firm, the W Group. Anything we can do to increase the public trust that residents have with their municipality, we believe enhances the quality of life within that municipality, the success of the municipal government, and so on. So let's just take a look at what I mean by public trust and what the different aspects of public trust are and how we can use that to actually leverage it and increase service delivery across the city. So public trust, you can see that there's 5 key aspects that actually make up public trust. The 3 values, those in blue here, are openness, integrity, and fairness. They really are predictors of public trust. The stronger those 3 elements are, the greater likelihood that residents actually have trust in their local government. The second 2, responsiveness and reliability, come into the competence area, and those can be used to boost public trust. Now, I think everybody would agree with me that you really can't move the needle on those values very quickly. There's something that's in the municipal world, and for a single local government, they're there and they get built up over time, and many mayors and councils later you have the values that are present there. The competence, on the other hand, really is used to boost public trust, and focusing your efforts on the responsiveness and the reliability of how you deliver services can really actually boost public trust in the end. A focus on service excellence is needed in order to build public trust quickly. The benefits of focusing on excellent service delivery are numerous. We can see on the one side satisfaction, we increase overall satisfaction, not only with customers and residents, but also with staff, because less people complaining and arguing or whatever, better for the staff and so on. Evidence-based budgets. This one is amazing when I talk to business unit managers and they say, hey, now I all of a sudden have evidence to say that the lack of parking at my facility is actually bringing the level of satisfaction down by the people using the facility, whether it's a library, a recreation center, art gallery, whatever it happens to be. And that evidence, then they can go and ask for capital improvement programs or additional programs to help mitigate parking challenges at that facility. So really valuable. Public participation, it's one way to get people more engaged, and rather than the passive customer comment card box, which we still have, and as part of this program, we're using a proactive approach to reach out and reach those customers and ask customers for feedback through this whole program. How it drives public trust is the key to the presentation, and I think all of these benefits. What we reduce on the other side are we reduce the volume of complaints coming in because we're being proactive, because we're looking at where people are having challenges or systemic problems with the services that we're delivering, and we're being proactive to improve those services reduce or eliminate those systemic challenges so that, in fact, it does reduce complaints overall. It also reduces support costs because imagine, if you're an employee and you're spending even 10% of your time managing a customer or a resident who's unhappy about something, and you now have that time free to do other things in your work, how much richer your work becomes and more satisfying, fulfilling, and so on. And then, of course, ultimately, it also reduces taxpayer frustration, which is key, because then they're not writing letters to the mayor and council or a local newspaper, but they're actually looking at their local government as a bit of a partner in the community, and they have greater trust in that local government. So with the example that I'm bringing you today, it's something that we've worked on with the city of Surrey for now probably 6 to 7 years. Here's all the business units that we now have this program in. We call it, to some degree, a voice of a customer program, but it's also referred to in-house as the customer satisfaction feedback program. So there's 12 different business units that are involved in the program right now. The first you see there is engineering operations, which includes streets and solid waste and pumps and water and so on, that the city provides service to. Registered recreation programs is a very important one, especially when residents they have an option. They can go to private facilities. They're paying for these programs that the city is offering, and you want to make sure that they're getting value for their money, that they're happy, and that they'll continue to come back year after year. Recreation facilities is another opportunity. So aside from those programmed participants, people who drop in and do casual recreation at the facilities, also important to gauge their level of satisfaction with the programs, the services, and so on that you're offering, again, to keep them coming back year after year. Parks operation, very similar, of course, to engineering operations in terms of receiving requests from residents about trees down or dangerous trees or graffiti in the parks or things like that, and responding to it. Libraries, art gallery, civic theaters, animal resource centers. If your municipality is providing those services in the community, really critical, because they, and some of them don't make any money, they're fully funded, of course. Others do make some revenue, but equally as important for the quality of life in the community to ensure that the services you are delivering through there are being well received and are meeting the needs and the expectations of the residents. And if they're not, what are the things that you can do to change those, to improve those, so that you're delivering that service excellence? The last 4 are really more internal facing. So payments, counters, people paying their taxes or paying for other bills, maybe a business license and so on at the front counter. How are they received, and how are they finding the service that they receive from the front counter staff? Permits requests, whether it's building or electrical or plumbing or what have you, again, how is that processing working? Because we all know that we hear from time to time that ABC municipality is doing really well on their permits, and a lot of developers are going there, and XYZ municipality isn't really doing well, and it's a slow process, and developers aren't going to that community and building as much. So critical that you are able to look at that, see how well that business unit is performing, and make those improvements. Economic development, if your economic development have regular interactions with businesses in the area or business organizations in the area, maybe you have a business visitation program. Again, another way to follow up and make sure that the business economic development group is performing to a standard and is ensuring satisfaction. And then the last one here, more and more municipalities are certainly taking their services online. So whether you're paying for a dog license or or paying for maybe a parking ticket, or you're registering for recreation programs, etc. That process, that online process, how is that working for people? I know there's a lot of research and testing that goes into developing these systems, but once they're there and they're online, are they actually performing the way they should as expected by residents and so on? So those are the current channels that the City of Surrey has, the business units that have active collection of customer satisfaction data. They use that to then in turn kind of better understand where they are in terms of their service delivery, what things they can do to improve service delivery, and ultimately that goes back to the municipality being more responsive and being more reliable for the end customer, again boosting the overall public trust in the short term. So what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about the power of the crowd. And you've probably heard of this term before, but it's really this notion of when you have a large group of people interacting with something, whether it's each other or maybe an app on their mobile devices or some entity somewhere, there's that power. And if you can harness that power and ask them to participate in whatever it happens to be, you can make something good from that. There's some synergistic effect that you can get from that. In this case, and we have that number, 68,000 service requests. This is specifically a few years ago, the City of Surrey, when we started working with them, we looked at the total number of service requests that came in through their Report a Problem app. Many of your municipalities may have that. 68,000 service requests plus in a single year. That's a crowd. That's an opportunity. The city is already leveraging that opportunity by inviting the general public to come in and provide input on where there are things within the city that are not maybe working really well. There's graffiti, or there's a pothole, or trees are down, whatever it happens to be. The public is participating. Number one, that's awesome. That's great. However, we also want to make sure that the process that we've developed is working for the residents, because if it's not, they will not use the process, and then ultimately the city loses all those ears and eyes across the municipality. Then they have to rely on other avenues to go up and down streets, seeing if there's anything that's out of sorts and things that they need to fix, like potholes. So really valuable having those 68,000 sets of eyes out there. We developed this one Voice of the Customer program, or customer satisfaction program, to figure out how to deliver that service even better and ultimately improve the public trust. So let's just tap into this a little bit more. Those of you who are familiar with the Report a Problem app or process, it's very simple. Somebody goes to a web page or an app, or they make a phone call to your municipality, and they submit a request. When the city closes or addresses that request, the system generally sends them an email saying, "Thank you very much. We have now closed your request," and they provide hopefully some background on what transpired and how they closed the request and so on. Well, we've just gone into that simple process that already exists and asked people to complete a follow-up satisfaction survey. So these 68,000 people, most of them have emails in the system. They receive an email as soon as the service request is closed. How did we do? They click on that, and there's a high percentage, probably in the 70% or so, actually click on that link and complete the very short survey. And I'm talking short, less than 1 page in length. And it's generally an overall, how satisfied were you? And then we break it down into key parts. then we also have a question of, would you like somebody to follow up with you? And that may or may not get turned on, depending upon if somebody's really unhappy, then definitely it gets turned on. But if they're really happy about things, maybe we don't ask them if they want somebody to follow up with them. But there is that option to be really proactive and be able to reach out to the customers who are still not happy with the service. The resident completes the survey, that data comes in, and then it's managed in, a lot of different ways. I won't get into all the background on that because, of course, it gets into a lot of detail. But I must say that a key to this program is there is a lot of data. Imagine if you had 70% of 68,000 people responding, and what's that? Somewhere in the 55,000 or something like that responses, and you ask them 5 questions each. Now you have 250,000 plus answers, and you have to analyze those answers and make some sense out of it. We believe in making sure that it's very, very simple, not only from the resident's perspective who's completing the survey, but also from the business unit's perspective. So what we do is, in the background research, we talk to the residents and we find out what are those critical moments of truth in that process that mean the most to them, because those are the ones where the city wins trust points or trust credits or loses trust credits. So we really focus in on those things. Just a side note here, you see on the side the business units within engineering operations are streets, solid waste, water pumps, controls, sanitary sewer, construction. So it's broken down that way. We get the service request in, we get the survey results in, we tie those two together, and the business units get access to that feedback, which is very, very powerful. So again, this notion of keeping it as simple as possible and also tying it back to what the customers expect and what their critical moments of truth are, the points in time where they say, yes, this is working for me, or no, this isn't working for me. And of course, that's entirely different whether they're in a recreation program, doing a drop-in at a library, or reporting a problem through engineering operations. So very simple. With engineering operations, we had 3 main areas we asked questions. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 questions for each of these: ease, quality, response. Ease during this period, we've just pulled a sample of the data here. During this period, ease was 69% satisfaction. Quality, 53% satisfaction. Response, 48% satisfaction. And there's one more measure that we have down at the bottom that you're probably not familiar with because it's a very corporate measure. It's called the Net Promoter Score, or NPS. It's used by major corporations around the world to identify, and it was developed by Harvard University about 20 years ago. And one single question is been validated to give an organization a sense of how likely people are going to continue using that organization, that process, that service, that recreation facility, attending that recreation program, going to the theater, and so on in the future. So very powerful one single question. We've also included that in here, and I know it's more corporate than municipal government, but it's fascinating. You think about many areas like recreation and civic theaters and art gallery and so on. You actually have competitors in the marketplace, and they probably look at Net Promoter Score. We're just helping municipalities do the same thing so that they can best position themselves to deliver the services and also overall increase that public trust. So likelihood to recommend, let's just dive into that for a moment. And basically, it's measured, the question is very simple, one question: how likely are you to report a problem, so the app, the process, to a colleague or a friend? 0 to 10, the top two scores, 9 and 10, are promoters. Those that are 6 and under are detractors, and then 7, 8 are passive. Take the promoters, subtract the detractors, and you have the net promoter score. So for the time period that we're focused on with this example with not only engineering operations, but more specifically solid waste, and I'll get into that in a minute to give you a sense of how this evolved for them and how they were able to, with this simple measure, this simple program, actually get feedback and better understand the process and how residents were reacting in a negative way to the process that they had in place. So their net promoter score was 37 to begin with. Well, it was much lower than that, but over time we were able to increase it. So anything in the positive is good. Solid waste at one point in time was kind of just at the 0 level, and through our attention to kind of unpacking why people were upset and giving them that information, they were able to change processes and procedures, and it increased that number, and it also increased the satisfaction scores overall. So just to back away for a moment, let's look at the next slide. The 4 areas that we look at, so the ease of submitting the service request, the quality of the interaction with staff and or through email, maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's an email, whatever it happens to be, the conclusion to it. And we can see here, as I mentioned before, 69, 53, and 48%. Well, 48% satisfaction rate, still pretty positive, but that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. What is it about that 49 or 48% that, why isn't it, or where are those other 52%? Let's put it that way. 52% maybe unsatisfied or dissatisfied. So that's what we dive into, and we look at that. And when we chart these ease, quality, conclusion over a period of time, and I think we have the next chart, which is over an 8-month period, we can see where the scores are. So we can see the trending data. Ease of submitting requests is in the 70%, starts at 70, the average is 72%. We look at the quality of service provided. It starts kind of in the mid-50s, goes all the way up to probably mid-60s. The average is 60%. And then we see the response and conclusion. It's on the uprise more than the other ones, but it started out very low. So what happened with engineering operations in the city, and more specifically with solid waste, is we noticed that solid waste had really low scores across the board for response and conclusion. So we took, I think it was about 5,000 completed surveys and started looking at them, the verbatim comments and so on. And from that, we were able to see that what was happening was that the vast majority of people that were truly dissatisfied were dissatisfied because they had submitted a request to say that their garbage hadn't been picked up. That request came through the report a problem and went directly into the dashboard of the subcontractor. The subcontractor, when the dispatch person was sitting there, they'd go, oh, okay, we missed a pickup at so-and-so, so-and-so. Okay, I'm going to dispatch a truck. They'll go and pick it up. Might be sometime today. Then they would close the ticket. They would close the ticket. Thank you very much for submitting this service request. We've now closed this ticket. Have a great day, was going out to people, and people were upset by that. we found this out through the survey, and we went and looked at the process and said, okay, wait a minute, we need to give the customers a sense of expectation of when their garbage is going to be picked up. So I think there were several options of, your garbage is going to be picked up within the next hour, your garbage is going to be picked up today before 5 or sometime today, or your garbage maybe wasn't out there in time and it'll be picked up tomorrow on a special run or something like that. So very, very specific language, which helped, in fact, to build the reliability, the responsiveness, and it helped to build the public trust. So as a result of that response and improving how they responded, all of their satisfaction scores started going up. And what we also saw was the Net Promoter Score, the likelihood of people using this process went up. Because if residents are getting a positive response when they submit a complaint, and they're saying, yeah, this really works. I submitted this and got this back within an hour, and in 2 hours my garbage got picked up. It really works. This is great. The more likely they're going to use that in the future, the more likely they will recommend it to friends and neighbors and so on. And so overall use goes up. Yes, you get more service requests, but you're also able to, with this type of research, understand how to improve the process so you're not missing as many garbage pickups, and you're not delivering misinformation to customers that would make them upset or angry or frustrated with the city services. And overall, it increases the public trust that residents have with the municipality. So the next couple of slides, let's just look at what we do with the data and in the end. So the email goes out, people click on the link, they open it up, there's a few questions. You can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions essentially in this survey. They answer each of the questions, whether they agree or disagree, and this information provides guidance to the business unit. This is actually something that was built in Power BI, so there's a whole bunch of filters in there so you can look at different aspects. The business units, you can look at the timing of when this happened, because of course when you're looking at garbage pickup and you have snow that day, well then it's going to be a little bit different, so you can block out those times. The next slide is probably the most interesting one, is for the verbatim comments. So the comments that people made in the survey, and these ones are so rich because they not only tell you what went wrong, but often give you the solution to what you can do about that. So best of both worlds, somebody is complaining, they're complaining to you, not to the mayor or the office, and they're also giving you the solution. So if you're like me, when you sit through these presentations, at the end you go, oh, wow, that's interesting and exciting, and you come back from the conference all like revved up, ready to go, and you have so many great ideas and everything, and sometimes you look back and you go, they really didn't tell me how to do it. And so I want to take the last few minutes of my presentation and talk a little more specifically about how you can do it. Because while we did this with the City of Surrey, and yes, 12th largest municipality in Canada and lots of resources and so on, I truly believe that any size municipality can do this, and it can provide you substantial value, not even mentioning the increase in public trust, which I think is so critical today. So what I would recommend to you, if you're at all interested in starting to do this, is to really look at the services that you offer that you feel the residents value the greatest. Quite possibly recreation services, library services, other services such as we talked about with engineering operations, if you have a report a problem, or maybe the front counter where you're doing inquiries or paying for bills or other things like that. One of the ways you can identify these services is think about the services where the largest group of people are interacting with you and or they are spending the largest amounts of money, because those two things will give you the greatest lift when it comes to public trust. If you perform really well with a big crowd of people, or you perform really well when people are paying for, let's say, their annual property taxes and they feel really good about the experience, tough one to get to, but I think you can do it, then that also increases public trust dramatically. So again, start with where the greatest value is, number of people or value in terms of maybe a dollar amount. Sit down with that business unit and have them explain to you what process a customer goes through when they're interacting with them in a regular interaction. Maybe they're booking a registered recreation program, or they're actually attending a registered recreation program. Whatever that interaction is, just sit down with those teams, the business units, and say, for these particular services or programs, what is it that the customer experiences? And just kind of go all the way through that. Formally we do customer experience journey mapping, where it's a fairly involved process of discovering what different steps a customer goes through and how they feel throughout that process. You can go that far, or you can just keep it simple and just talk to the business unit about that, and maybe go out and do some one-on-one interviews or discussions, just casual discussions with actual customers, and ask them, how did you, when you think about booking a registered recreation program, what do you do? How do you start that process? And what do you feel as you're going through it? And watch for when they get really excited or maybe a little frustrated, because those are your clues for them having that critical moment of truth, as I mentioned before, that point in time where when you do it right, you gain a lot of trust credits. When you do it wrong, you maybe lose trust credits, but you certainly lose the appreciation of the customer. And then once you have those points in time that are most valuable to them through the process, come up with some basic questions about that. They don't have to be overly complex. You saw in the one example that we had for service requests, there was 6 or 7 questions. Simpler, the better for you, for the business unit, and so on. You can change them as you go along if need be, but just start with something, start slow. And then in terms of gathering the information from the customers, once you've designed the survey, whether it's paper-based or it's a customer comment card with a box, make sure it is very visible. That's really a passive one. Somebody needs to be most likely really, really, really happy, or probably a little upset, and that's when they land something in there. So in all fairness to you and your staff, you want to be proactive. You want to see those systems and those processes where you get access to their emails and you can send them emails on a regular basis and maybe even automate it to make it easier for you and your staff. They receive the email, they open it up, they complete it. Very simple for them. They feel good because they've provided feedback to you. Now, ultimately, it's your responsibility to sit down with the business unit or have the business unit take the time and look at this. Now, we used to do a lot of annual satisfaction surveys. We've pared it down to doing much smaller surveys, but ongoing. So a continuous survey. When you have it there all the time, you're always collecting data. You can always see when there's a shift in something. You can always get immediate feedback from customers. And if somebody's really upset, it does serve as that customer comment card box scenario. You get the input, the customer says, yeah, I want somebody to follow up with me. You can have an email in your inbox within seconds of them completing the survey. You pull that up, you look at it, you give them a call, you resolve the issue before they go to the mayor or before they go to the social media. Perfect scenario. And you've also learned how to improve your operation, and you've increased the public trust from that single resident and probably a whole bunch of others if it's a systemic problem. So focusing on that from the business unit in terms of a timing, I would say, you launch it, you watch the information come in. The end of month one, you look at it and say, okay, so what do we see here? What are we learning here? What are our big problems? And look at it, think about it as what is the lowest hanging piece of fruit on there that you want to tackle? Just make it simple for yourself. Tackle one thing at a time. This is the low hanging fruit. You figure out how you're going to hopefully improve that. You do some improvement in month 2, month 3, you just collect the data again, the beginning of month 4, you take a look at the data and you go, okay, did we solve that? Did we make that better for our customers? And I bet you, even with a small amount of energy, you will have seen the gains from that one issue, that one topic. And once that goes away, if you've done a good job in solving it, it's not going to come back again. And then the beginning of the 4th month, you can pick the next lowest hanging fruit and just constantly do that, because that gets you into a continuous improvement process or performance process, which is really beneficial for overall employee satisfaction and energy and so on. And it also, of course, helps to drive satisfaction with your customers. And as we know, that boosts public trust in the end. So the road to excellence in service delivery to increase public trust is just focusing on the crowds that are out there, using a simple method and just asking those questions and then doing something with the information. So thank you very much for having me out. I hope that it's been a beneficial session to sit in on, and I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. And really, I think in the end, all I can say is to summarize is, focus on where the crowd is, focus on the services that you're delivering, how you can improve that service delivery, because ultimately that will improve the public's trust that they have in your local government, which makes your jobs a lot easier in the future and certainly increases the quality of life of your residents.